And the Falcons won the Reebok Challenge the hard way with a win over the Gold Coast in the quarter-finals, and then everyone expected Perth, who finished on top of the tree last year, to blow the lowly Falcons out of the stadium, but it wasn't to be as Stevens and Greed made crucial baskets. With 1 second left, Everett Stevens was fouled and had a chance to go to the final. A three-point shootout to decide it, Stevens making amends with a first, and captain Al Green lined up for the win. To the final and their old foes, the Sydney Kings, Stevens opened well. And then showed some fancy footwork to dazzle the Kings, before McCleary got angry with Grant Kruger. In the second half, Terry Dozier hit a crucial basket to give the Foster's Falcons a 3-point lead, but McCleary levelled. 11-all at the end, another shootout. Dozier making the first, before McCleary came up real short. Al Green not online. And Dwayne McLean also offline. And that left Everett Stevens to seal the $20,000 cheque.
I've got one, three things in there. Apparently it's written on the...
According to the more than 600 15 to 18-year-olds who were asked, school teachers are out of touch and undertrained. Employment opportunities, subsidised job search schemes and public transport are biased against the young. Boredom is high, respect for the young is low. There's confusion and difficulty in finding a career, and there should be freer access to sex education.
So I think they're starting to have their whinge, but our consultants found that throughout the Hunter there's still a lot of optimism amongst our young people. It's very exciting optimism, and also very exciting that they're starting to have their say and that the government's prepared to have a listen.
Such issues and a list of recommendations for change are the culmination of 6 months of consultations with the Hunters Youth by the Regional Youth Development Officers Network and the Office of Youth Affairs. The Minister for Education, mayors and senior government officials attended the forum at City Hall.
And we're very excited. We have a lot of senior people here today who are listening to what young people around the Hunter have got to say, and that's a good starting place.
Fresh from the state titles, and today it was back to training. Donna Proctor returned with 6 medals, 4 gold in freestyle and the fly, plus 2 silvers for the medley.
She did it really tough over the weekend. She swam more events than any other swimmer and competed with some great results.
At the age of 22, Eric Arnold says this is Donna's big year.
This is Donna's swan song. Donna's out there, she's 22 years of age and never been swimming better. Her preparation is right on schedule, and she's going to be on that plane for Barcelona.
His other Olympic hopeful is 19-year-old Simon McKillop Davies. He finished with gold in the 200 metres butterfly. The giant flyer is currently ranked 4th in the world.
Best talent in Australia. He's just got to learn to put it together, and Simon can be the next Australian and world record holder.
Eric Arnold says the next 6 weeks will be crucial to both swimmers' selection for Barcelona. Catherine Lamond, NBN News.
When the Japs dropped bombs on Darwin, you should have seen the scatter. And when we laid upon the ground, you couldn't have been much flatter.
George Kildee may have been sitting at his kitchen table, but in his mind he was crouched in a sewer trench as 188 Japanese Zero fighters devastated Darwin.
Must have been terrifying.
Oh, mate, you've got no idea.
February 19th, 1942. George was part of the Surveying Corps. Its job was to map the top end. No one had any inkling of what was to come.
That's me alongside of him. There he is in his war paint.
Ah, right.
And the post office got one there. When the war broke out, they never a damn. A little black girl was killed and she was buried under the rubble. They never found her for a few days. You know, those sort of things, they prey on your mind.
A bronze medallion, official recognition for services rendered. Darwin's commemorating this dark chapter with a series of events over the next 10 months. George's one regret, he won't be part of it. Anthony Griffiths, NBN News.
The ruling has outraged many in Ireland who've been fighting strict anti-abortion laws for more than a decade.
Those people who supported the pro-life amendment assured the Irish people that something like this would not happen. And now we have, as I say, a nightmare scenario where it has happened.
The High Court heard the girl was raped by her best friend's father 10 weeks ago, but banned her from travelling to a clinic in London, ruling that the risk of her committing suicide was preferable to the certainty of the child's death. In Scotland, scientists have bred a new sheep which could help prevent lung disorders. She's named Tracy, and though she doesn't look it, she's part human. Tracy carries a single human gene which gives her milk a special protein used in the treatment of diseases such as emphysema. It's the first time a drug has been produced through genetic engineering, and researchers are already working on a similar one for haemophiliacs.
A record 38 million tonnes of coal were exported from Newcastle last year, but it was destined for an international market already flooded. The global oversupply of steaming coal has enabled the Hunter's biggest customer, Japan, to demand and get a US 95-cent drop on each tonne they buy for the next 12 months. Japan takes 28 million tonnes of Hunter coal each year. That's about 55% of what the region produces. So while Japan will gain from buying coal at the cheaper price of US $38.90 a tonne, it means a 2.5% loss to the Hunter's mines.
I think it's buyers in general throughout the world have us over a barrel because there are more producers than there are buyers. That's, there's more coal to be sold than there are buyers wanting to buy it. So it's just the age-old supply and demand story.
Hunter coal companies say they're hoping the falling Australian dollar will offset the price cut. The lower the Aussie dollar, the better for our coal exporters. But they also assert that with no one knowing which way the exchange rate will go, the confidence of the Hunter coal industry could be knocked.
I think people who might have been planning to put new projects on stream in the short term might be starting to think about it again.
The Hunter Economic Development Council asserts the price cut holds a message for the region's coal industry to stay competitive, keep reducing costs and improve productivity.
I don't think the drop will cause a lot of problems with employment in the valley. But what it will do, it will force the Hunter Valley coal producers to continue the process of economic reform and productivity improvements that they've been on for the last several years.
But industry leaders say there's better days ahead. The demand for the Hunter steaming coal is likely to increase. Scott Bevan, NBN News.
The faithful were out in force, all 14,000 of them. The Knights were under pressure early. Newcastle weathered the storm and hit back. Soon after, John Schuster turned a penalty into points. It was a physical game. Knights fullback Brad Godden was seeing red. Schuster missed another penalty shot Jason Taylor pinned for an incorrect play of the ball. The replay shows justice was done. The lone try came just after half-time. 6-2. Taylor stretched that lead 9 minutes later. 8-2. In the heat, the Knights were running out of steam. Schuster grabbed another 2 points late in the match. Injury worries for Newcastle. McCormack left the field after receiving a heavy knock. Wests now have a date with Penrith in the quarter-finals.
So you'll dye your hair, you'll start talking like a lot of girls you don't like or respect.
When you ring to book a taxi, the operator takes your name and pickup details. They're relayed to the driver, who usually jots them down on a piece of paper. But all this is about to change. Taxis will be fitted with small computer screens. As well as the usual information, drivers will also be given a map reference to make finding the place easier.
With this system, with the computer in the car, all information is provided on the car computer screen. And it is there at any time for the driver to call back.
Newcastle will be divided into zones. Drivers will have to enter their location in the computer. Jeff Rich believes the new system will prevent disputes between drivers about who is closest to the job. He says there are many other advantages.
There's vastly improved customer service, a more efficient operations, a much better working environment in both the vehicle and in the radio room.
Conditions promised to be vastly different from their last encounter in Newcastle. Driving rain made it hard to string passages of play together, although Marconi made the better of their opportunities to whip the Breakers 3-0 in the NSL Cup. 4 days later in Sydney, Marconi won their first league match of the year and have since issued a warning to all clubs that they are far from a spent force in this year's competition. Last weekend, the Breakers ended a dreadful run of outs with a gutsy win over West Adelaide in the City of Churches, Captain Andy Koska having another brilliant game. But the side that took on West Adelaide and the one that will meet Marconi are like chalk and cheese. Out goes John Russell, Darren Northam and Darren Hillier. In comes Mike Gibson and Craig Moffat from suspension, and Bobby Newmoff, controversially dropped from last week's squad but reinstated. Youngster Troy Halpin will most likely start on the bench, leaving Kosher Maloney to battle on up front.
Police were called to this rented house on Holt Street, Mayfield, yesterday afternoon by cleaners who reported finding what they believed was a body concealed in the ceiling. Appalled police confirmed that the body was that of a 3-month-old baby boy. It's believed the infant's body, which was wrapped in plastic, had been in the roof cavity for about 3 weeks. Scientific police spent today examining the house and sorting through a number of items of clothing and personal effects apparently left by the owners. The infant's body was taken to Newcastle City Morgue last night, but this morning a police statement threw little light on the mystery.
Detectives went to a house in Holt Street, Mayfield, where the body of a small infant child was found. Detectives are carrying out inquiries and are anxious to interview a man and a woman who were previous occupants of the house.
Residents on the street say the couple only recently moved into the address and kept very much to themselves. However, they did say that a woman was seen leaving the house occasionally pushing a pram. At this stage, police say they still haven't formally identified the infant and have been unable to officially inform relatives. Results of a post-mortem conducted this afternoon have not been released, although it's understood samples are being sent to Sydney for further forensic tests. Tom Hilston, NBN News.
Just before 8 this morning, this sedan ploughed head-on into a four-wheel drive vehicle. The occupants, 2 men aged in their 40s, died instantly. They were from the ACT, the other driver escaped injury. It was drizzling rain at the time of the accident, however, police say driver error was to blame. Meanwhile, further south near Wauchope, the state's second level crossing smash in as many days has claimed the life of a 32-year-old man. Gregory John Pender died instantly when his station wagon collided with a freight train. The line was cleared this afternoon, a locomotive from Torres towing away the disabled train.
"12 girls and 15 boys are spending this weekend at the Bennett's Green 10-pin bowling centre, vying for a place in the Australian Junior Championships to be held in Townsville over Easter. And with only 7 girls and 7 boys being chosen to attend the titles, competition for those spots is fierce. Of the contenders, Newcastle's Amanda Bradley heads the girls. On the January long weekend in Canberra, Amanda became the first junior girl in Australia to bowl a perfect 300 game. The boys' field is one of the best assembled. Kevin Russell from Tamworth has been in excellent form in recent times and again this weekend is bowling well. Stephen O'Byrne, a 15-year-old from Taree, has been sensational, becoming the first junior to bowl a 700 series. Along with bowlers from Lismore and Ballina, Newcastle's AJ Foxford is also well ranked, being the current Australian junior champion. The team will be announced late tomorrow. A near record entry of around 220 boats are taking part in Australia's premier game fishing competition, the New South Wales Inter-Club Tournament in the waters off Port Stephens. This morning at 7:30, the traditional sail passed in front of the Black Marlin Marina at Nelson Bay. On show, a magnificent array of sporting craft rigged up for the battle ahead. Last year, over 100 large fish were caught, tagged and released on the first day alone, with the bigger ones landed and brought into the weigh station. Many anglers who travelled from Sydney for the start of the tournament have already hooked up with Black Marlin, and expectations are high for the event. Boats with weighable fish will return to the marina station from 4 o'clock each afternoon, with grandstands being built for spectators.
Blue Gum Lodge, as it will be known, will be built in the grounds of Greenwich Hospital. Cancer patients who need to stay in Sydney for extended treatment at Royal North Shore Hospital will be able to use the lodge. While the plans for the building are still on the drawing board, a fundraising appeal was launched last night to make them a reality. Coffs Harbour supporters have set a target of $100,000 by the end of 1992. A similar launch was held at Port Macquarie today.
Don't forget we're here. See you, mate.
Ron Lauder was notified 2 weeks ago that the bus service he operated between Narrabri, Wee Waa and Burren Junction has been cancelled. The service ran on Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays on a route previously served by rail. The State Rail Authority has cancelled the service on the simple grounds that it doesn't pay.
The money simply isn't there and never has been there because the payable distance is too short, and due to the fact that by and far the majority of all fares are concession fares.
Mr Lauder says the passenger numbers are consistent. Many of the pensioners and children who travel to school in Tamworth will have no alternatives because of the decision. The original decision gave the local service only 2 weeks to end operation, but Minister for Public Works Wald Murray intervened, giving the service an extra 2 weeks on the grounds that the original notice was too short. But Mr Lauder says this is not enough.
I reckon we're doing quite a bit more for the people in these isolated areas, and at least giving them some service and instead of removing it altogether.
Research into a special service for peak periods is being investigated, but it's not sure if this would be viable. Meanwhile, many residents in the area remain isolated.
"72-year-old Dulcie Huff is lucky to be alive. Last Wednesday, while walking to Wickham Post Office, she experienced severe chest pain.
I didn't think I was going to see another day after I got home. I thought that was it.
And until last year, it might have been. Dulcie's heart stopped beating while ambulance officers Peter Johansson and Wayne Garner were on the scene. They were able to use a defibrillator to restart her heart. These expensive life-saving machines have now been included in most New South Wales ambulances, thanks to a donation of about $2.5 million from media magnate Kerry Packer. The amount was matched by the state government. While the technology is now available, ambulance officers stress the importance of calling for medical attention early.
If she would have waited any longer, the chances of her being able to be brought back were very, very slim. The longer she waits and the longer the denial period is there for the pain, the difficult the situation is to bring them back.
A grateful patient is recovering in the John Hunter Hospital this week. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
Coke, iron, steel and smoke, the fruits of heavy industry, and according to artist George Gittos, sheer poetry for the palate. George spent a month at BHP, sketching and snapping. 3 years later, the results are on show. Candid commentary from inside industry.
You can go to some exhibitions and you can see pictures of rolling hills and Jamboree or paint splattered on a canvas, but it's very rare that you can come to an exhibition and see landmarks and people from your own town interpreted by an artist.
Characters in charcoal, so black you can almost feel the grime. And the worker who happily posed for George and a few days later was splattered with molten metal.
Really, I'm like a social historian. I cover things about real people and what they really do.
The exhibition in the Lovett Gallery is open until the 4th of April. Anthony Griffiths, NBN News.
The Department of Education has a policy that all high school children be taught about sexual development. It's designed to raise awareness about matters such as pregnancy and contraception. But according to some teenagers in the Upper Hunter, the lessons learnt don't necessarily mean awareness gained.
Really, I don't think there's any whatsoever. It's only like through personal experience, I said, or just...
Educators say what makes it hard for some country-based young is that no matter how much they know about safe sex, it can be difficult for them to practice what they learn. Sometimes isolation, conservative attitudes, or the embarrassment of having to face the only doctor in a town put contraceptives off limits to teenagers, forcing them to extreme action.
We've had phone calls and letters asking for condoms to be mailed out and pill scripts to be mailed out, and now that's tricky because you can't do that through the mail. Our Sydney office is looking at eventually probably starting up a mail order service for exactly these sorts of reasons.
If a young girl here in the Upper Hunter, in one of the smaller towns in Muswellbrook, wanted to go on the pill but was ashamed to go to the local doctor, where does she go?
I would say that if anything she would probably go out of town to another doctor.
But some Upper Hunter teenagers are going much further than neighbouring towns for advice or contraception. They're going all the way to Newcastle to the family planning clinic.
We do know that people travel from the Upper Hunter just for an appointment to get a pill, for example, or some other advice.
Newcastle has the only family planning clinics in the Hunter, which means long-distance travel for young mothers referred to specialist counselling by the Department of Community Services office in Muswellbrook.
I think sometimes they're away from their peer group in a small town. They may prefer to do that so that everybody doesn't know.
But there's hope that the recent appointment of a full-time women's health nurse at Muswellbrook Hospital will lessen the tyranny of distance for teenagers grappling with the knowledge and practice of safe sex. Scott Bevan, NBN News. For many, a daily drink of milk would bring back happy and wholesome recollections of school days past. But it's taken on new importance for the children at Argenton Public School, which nestles in the shadow of the Pasminco sulphide works at Bullaroo. The children were blood tested for lead levels late last year, some returning readings above World Health Organisation and Australian health standards. The results of soil tests in the area will be known within 2 weeks. Lead contamination has a cumulative effect.
Oh, there have just been some indefinable things, children with a funny cough, and there are some asthma cases here, and there have been children with, after the blood test, that had a high blood level, and so parents have made various decisions about how to cope with it. Some have moved away from the area, and others have got involved in the community action group.
The school and the community have rallied to combat the perceived problem the best they can.
We were concerned about the lead issue in the area, and after a staff development day held at Spears Point, where we listened to Dr Judy Galvin, and she gave us advice about how we can best help the children. And there were 3 ways. One involved increase in dairy product consumption, the other was an increase in fibre in the diet, and extra hygiene requirements, washing hands before they eat, things like that.
With the assistance of milk marketing and a disadvantaged school subsidy program, most of the 130 students will pay 15 cents a day for a cup of milk.
Now that the lead issue has come out, there's a lot of negative feeling about it, so we have a lot of support from the parents in that it's a positive move, making a positive statement about the area.
This year's show is off to a flying start, many families taking advantage of today's free entry for accompanied children. And in an area called Showbag City, it seemed the youngsters were calling the shots, while parents were dipping into the purse.
Definitely get in early, definitely, before the crowd starts.
The essential Showbag collection included a horror bag, complete with snake, skull sunnies and...
skeleton.
Others were pacing themselves for a long night ahead, oblivious to the shouts from Sideshow Alley.
show, you can either eat or be eaten. Troops of street entertainers are wandering the grounds, catching some by surprise. High school students are catching snaps for a show photo competition, while there's a glimpse of the old Luna Park in this grand wave swinger, now a travelling attraction. Once again, the country has come to town with stock horse and show jumping events underway and a few easier to corral exhibits as well. And there's what's his name again. Andrew Lobb reporting for NBN News.
Christine Watling has been in and out of hospital since she was 15. Christine has lupus, a disease which has caused her kidneys to fail. A successful transplant at the age of 20 gave her 12 years of good health, but her condition deteriorated. For the last 6 years, a dialysis machine has had to do the work of her kidneys, 5 hours a day, 3 times a week. Now, to her considerable relief, she has once again been released from the imprisonment of dialysis. Christine has had a second transplant. This time, the donor was her mother.
I didn't ask her. She volunteered. I wasn't sort of going around asking like the doctors would say, you have to find someone to give you a kidney, but I sort of didn't feel right, going around asking.
58-year-old Jean Price has given her daughter the gift of good health and the freedom to enjoy it.
I didn't feel I was doing anything out of the ordinary. I had people say to me, I could never do that. I don't think that's the case. I don't think it's the case with the mother anyway. Maybe it's a harder decision with someone further away in the family.
But Christine is one of the lucky few. The availability of kidneys for transplant operations like hers is seriously limited. Living donors are rare. Most kidneys are taken from people who are brain dead. That means their brain is dead, but their other organs are intact. 1 in 2 medically suitable donors take their organs with them when they die.
And there needs to be a lot more discussion and education in the community about the importance of giving permission for cadaver organ donation.
Meanwhile, both Christine and her mother are recovering well. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
The crash of cannons and another Newcastle show officially open. Ros Kelly was there in her capacity as Federal Minister for the Arts, Sport, the Environment, Tourism and Territories. Surely the show must come under one of those. Then followed the parade. But away from all the pomp and ceremony, Sideshow Alley blazed on, a migraine cocktail of riotous colour and heavy metal music. Last night, against a backdrop of swirling lights and blaring bagpipes, an eye-catching cavalcade. Beneath the balloons, 13 belles vying for the title Miss Showgirl. The winner, 18-year-old student Annabelle Trail. For Miss Trail, a chance to represent Newcastle at the Royal Easter Show and a holiday in Coffs Harbour. Anthony Griffiths, NBN News.